Here on GB News, we're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, after a dramatic late-night suspension of Labour's Chagos Island deal, there has been heartbreak for the Chagosians this afternoon. The British Overseas Territory...
No retreat! No surrender! No retreat! No surrender! No retreat! No surrender! No retreat!
So the defiant lawyers there chanting on, but... The British Overseas Territory will now be surrendered to Mauritius at a cost of at least £9 billion to the British taxpayer. Well, joining me now in the studio is the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel. Priti, a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Martin. Good to be here.
It felt there might be an 11th hour overnight miracle for the Chagosians. It wasn't to be.
Well, I was following this from about 11:30 last night till, when the interim judgment came out that put an injunction on all of this. And I was with the very lovely Chagosian community that you showed earlier on. This is devastating. But, I'm going to be really quite blunt about this. This absolutely will define this rotten Labour government. The fact that they just don't care about Britain's place in the world, flying the flag of the United Kingdom. This is about the sovereignty of the British Indian Overseas Territory, which, by the way, we own already. And now they're basically giving it to the government of Mauritius. We don't even know how much that's going to cost. Put that into the context of your wonderful viewers who go out to work every day, pay their taxes, pay more taxes under this awful government with Rachel Reeves and co. And yet this Labour government has refused to even say what the total cost of this will be. And we've been speculating for months that this will be in the billions of pounds. That's billions of hard-pressed taxpayers' cash. It's an absolute stain, quite frankly, on our country and a stain on our democracy, because Parliament has not had the chance to do the scrutiny. I've got a letter here that I wrote to Calamity Lammy back in March, the 28th of March, where still endless questions that have been put to him have been unanswered. And just one final point. We've been told that there'll be a statement in Parliament later on today. I push for questions every day, urgent questions, statements. The Defence Secretary will be given the statement. He's obviously substituting for David Lammy, who is clearly too much of a coward to come to the House and actually start answering not just these questions, but the hundreds that still remain unanswered by backbenchers in Parliament.
How long is a piece of string in terms of the money? £9 billion could be a very conservative estimate. £18 billion, the Taxpayers Alliance say. Nigel Farage says if you factor in the appreciation, the inflation on the amounts per annum, it could be as high as £50 billion. We simply don't know the cost. But could I put it to you, the Labour Party, of course, would say, well, this process was initiated on the Conservative Party watch by James Cleverly.
Yeah.
Do you feel a sense of regret that you got this ball rolling?
I'll tell you now, there's no justification for this, full stop. The Labour government have taken an advisory legal opinion and basically based this policy decision, it's their policy decision, on them. They're trying, it's a deflection strategy for them. Oh, the Tories started it. The Tories, by the way, stopped it. It was David Cameron who stopped this as Foreign Secretary. And it's too much of a comfort blanket for Labour, who are lazy. They are absolutely lazy and dishonest, to say, oh, it was all the Tories' fault. It was not. We stopped it. But the reality is here. Billions will be at stake. We're going to see a draft treaty this afternoon. I have been told they're going to bring the treaty to Parliament. We don't know when they're going to publish it, but it's coming. I doubt in there we'll even see the full financial disclosure. We might see an arbitrary figure. It's an arbitrary judgment, after all, right? We might see an illustrative figure. That's about it, but not the full details. I will be spending my time combing through this. I'll table more questions. If he can't answer 40 questions, he'll get 400 questions from me, David Lammy will. We need answers. The British public, your viewers need answers, the Chagosians need answers, British taxpayers need answers. Because, by the way, this awful Labour government are already talking with Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner. They're planning even more tax hikes. So why isn't that money being spent in this country rather than putting a deal forward like this?
Can I ask you about the parliamentary procedure, what happens next? Because we had a glimmer of a hope for the Chagosians at 2:30 this morning when this pyjama junction was put ahead. There will now be a vote. There's practically no chance of this being voted down with the size of Labour's majority. This is almost certain, barring a miracle, to be voted through, is it?
So there's a process. So they're going to bring the treaty today, and then there are 21 days from the day of the treaty being presented to Parliament. So 21 days from today, that's 21 sitting days in Parliament, so there's a recess next week. Well, but there you go. So 21 sitting days for us to put loads of questions in, do the scrutiny. We'll probably have to negotiate how much time we have on the floor of the House. I want time on the floor of the House, quite frankly. And bear in mind, Labour like to switch Parliament off every day quite early, and they fill it with statements and stuff. I think we should be using all our time to scrutinise this treaty. Yes, there will be votes, but I also think that, you know, there'll be amendments to the bill, there'll be discussions, there will be votes. You're right, Labour are a bunch of cowards. They just sort of like vote like sheep. So they will try and get it through. But I can promise people now, I and my party will do the slide rule treatment, will do the scrutiny that's required, because I just don't think this is right. The whole approach isn't right, Martin, how they've gone about this, because as I've said, they've not been transparent. And like I said now, you know, they're landing a statement at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We think there's a press conference coming up shortly too. There's dishonesty. They've had months to come to Parliament and say this is what they do, and they've not been very honest about any of the detail.
A lot of people, including the Chagosians themselves, and we're having some of them into the studio at 4 o'clock, and they're devastated about it. But the strategic threat yesterday was all about Vladimir Putin is cozying up to Mauritius. The other week, it was the Red Dragon of China. All sorts of influencers and influencers throughout the world that, let's be frank, don't wish Britain much help. They ostensibly wish us harm. Is it a huge concern to you that foreign agents, no, superpowers, nuclear powers, could be cozying up to Mauritius and getting their claws into the Chagos Islands?
I think, and that's the whole point, right? So Labour would say, oh, it's passed all the national security checks, etc., etc. We live in an unstable world. Anyone can do anything now. That is a fact. You know, Mauritius isn't exactly friendly to us. Let's be honest about this. I've spent too much time watching the Mauritian Parliament discuss this as well. They're laughing at us. They're laughing at David Lammy and co and Keir Starmer because they keep saying we want more money. They're a client state, effectively. They will start going around touting with other countries who will be our adversaries, not our allies. What more can we squeeze out of other people? The Russian, so they signed a deal with Russia this week, and that was some kind of cooperation deal. Well, why weren't our security agencies and why wasn't our government concerned about that? We've known the Chinese have had plenty of interest in this area. We know about the threats in that region.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values, because we at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.